And then once you get to level service E and F, you definitely get in trouble with your parents if you bring home that report card. But that's where you start seeing the longer delays and congestions, like I mentioned. So as I was saying, that under each condition, existing, pass-through, and then development, those operations need to be brought up to that preferred level service standard in order, before you can kind of move on and figure out what the next steps are. And then there are provisions in the Act 209 where that standard can be waived if there are constraints, environmental, right-of-way, property impacts. So there are a couple intersections where we did kind of run out of room, so to speak, to provide more additional improvements. So there are a couple instances where we don't quite meet that preferred level service threshold. Oh, I forgot it. All right. So from the land use assumptions report, we did plug in our estimates for all the different types of land uses. We did estimate that, based on the zoning there and, potential development and kind of locations of the different available parcels. We did estimate some breakout development or build out development for the 10-year for shopping center. It was just over 570,000 square feet. Warehousing, 2.1 million. Housing, another 442 units. And office was 75,000 square feet. So it's our best guess at this point. We're not saying that this is definitely going to happen. It's not in the pipeline yet. It's just our and the committee's assessment of how much potential could be in the next 10 years. So what that does is equates to, trips in terms of ins and outs combined, 2,100 in a morning peak hour on a typical weekday. And then in the afternoon, the 4 to 6 rush hour, it would be about just under 3,400 trips. So, based on where the development could happen in the township, the different roadways and the roadway network and existing traffic volumes, we spread all that traffic out and distribute throughout the roadway network. And then we start running our traffic analysis. Thank you. So we do develop various figures that show each condition. So tonight, I'm just going to go over the composite. There are, and this is available online as well, Chris, right? Still available online? Yeah, and it's in the agenda packet. There's a separate figure in the actual report for existing conditions, a separate report for pass-through conditions, and then this composite that has all those two as well as the development conditions. So the green, if you see it on this figure here, that is existing conditions. The blue are blue improvements, and then the yellow are our development improvements that get subject to the transportation impact fee. So you can see that there's a lot of yellow, so it's good for the township in that they don't have to carry a lot of the burden for these for this development traffic. And then there are also a few hollow figures that are projects that are kind of already in the pipeline. They've been designed and funded. For example, Baltimore Pike and Newark, and then up at the 41 interchange, the roundabout project by PennDOT. So I'm not going to go through every single intersection because we studied a lot of intersections. But basically, there are a lot of signalized intersections proposed. There are some additional through lanes along Route 41. There are turning lanes. We did evaluate wherever we recommended a traffic signal. We did evaluate the potential for a roundabout. But in those instances, either there was not significant or sufficient right-of-way, there were some environmental constraints, property impact, severe property impacts, or it wouldn't function as a single lane roundabout, like just up in Londonderry Township that they just installed. They would need to be, in order to handle the traffic that we're projecting, it would have to be multi-lane roundabouts, and that makes the footprint of that roundabout that much larger. So, unfortunately, there aren't as many roundabouts as we thought we could maybe work into the capital improvement plan, but this isn't set in stone. It's something that can be reevaluated, reassessed every couple of years without such a large undertaking that we did just to establish the Act 209. Yeah, so, so there was some comment, we got some feedback from SAVE about that intersection. And again, there are a lot of constraints at that intersection that would have really blown out the footprint and had a lot of impacts along the corridor. And there already, within New Garden, there already are some traffic signals along the corridor. This was Star and 41, sorry. What? Oh, I'm sorry, Sunnydale, yes, I'm sorry. Star is over here, okay, sorry. So, but similar, both intersections really, that there's a lot of traffic along 41. I don't have to, everybody knows that, they drive it frequently. So the volumes pick up south of Route 1, feeding down to Delaware, whereas, heading kind of west towards Lancaster, there's still heavy volumes, but they're not quite as heavy. A lot of that truck traffic, a lot of commuter traffic does, travel up 41 and get on Route 1. So there's kind of a different character. There's different traffic volumes kind of to the north or west along Route 41. So, what works in Londonderry Township, doesn't necessarily work in, New Garden. And, the township's vision is kind of more of a commercial corridor on Route 41, whereas kind of further west, it's still, kind of bucolic and kind of more of a country road. So, we felt like, it was a transition, from Route 1, from, going through Avondale to pick up and carry that additional traffic south and, north from Delaware. And then the 5 Point intersection at Newark, New Garden, we really thought we were going to be able to provide a roundabout there. But once we started looking at it, in order to, you can't do a 5-lane roundabout, intersecting. You have to realign one of those approaches. And, with the grades, the properties, the buildings on the corners there, it required a pretty large shift and realignment of either, we looked at both Bucktoe Road as well as New Garden Road on this approach to see what would make sense. But the cost to do all that just almost doubled the traffic impact fee, which, we don't want to do that because, one, it'll probably get challenged by developers, and two, it'll just kind of stunt some of the growth that the township does want to see. So basically, we are proposing one roundabout at Kehl and Route 7 here on the south part of the township, or the east part of the township. Again, we're hoping for a few more roundabouts, at least at the 5 Point intersection, but those costs, at least through the Act 209 process, are really high. Now, when the township goes to implement these projects, these these recommendations can be reassessed. So there can be the opportunity to kind of modify these improvements when it goes to design, and, maybe, in a few years, the township can take a look at the volume projections and say, okay, we're not there. We could do a roundabout here. But based on the procedures we have to follow in Act 209, we can't do that with this mechanism, this tool. So we're going to move forward with this, the signalized improvements. So I'm not going to go through a whole lot of detail, but basically we have a table, as I mentioned, for existing conditions. So this is what was needed to get everything up to the preferred level of service. I'm going to go through the pass-through condition and the development condition. And then basically it lists every intersection, what the improvement is for those, for each condition. It has the total project cost, as well as the allocations, PennDOT, developer, and in some cases others. And then it has a construction completion date. So we basically pushed out every improvement that was on the townships that wasn't already scheduled by PennDOT to 2035, the 10-year build out. Not all these improvements are going to get built in the next 10 years. It's just a schedule, and the township will kind of reassess this plan and this schedule, these priorities on an ongoing basis. What we typically recommend is the committee reconvene probably about every 2 years, and we'll look at the cost, we'll look at the improvements, and then we'll look at the schedule as well and update it. So, yeah, we can, that's just all right. So this 12,499,518, that was the developer share of the capital improvement plan on the previous table. And if you remember, there were 3,394 trips in the afternoon peak hour from the land use assumptions report that we included in our traffic analysis. So you divide those two, and then you get a traffic or transportation impact fee of $3,682 per new trip. Again, it's only for new development. And there is a slight add-in on the capital improvement value of about $10,000, because the Act 209 allows you to include a little bit of the cost of our study into that fee calculation. So it's a little off, but that's what it's reserved for. So that's the end of my presentation. Again, it was high level, but those documents have been available for review. So typically with public hearings, we do make a motion for and it would be the committee to approve or recommend for approval for the Board of Supervisors. And then at that point, after the motion's made and seconded, we take questions. So, you want to do that? If somebody from the committee can make a motion and second it. Okay. Unanimous? Okay, all right. And then the capital improvement plan, we'll go back. We'll do the same thing. No, go back. Yep. Sorry, just the motions again. We have to do the capital improvement plan. So we'll do the same thing for the transportation capital improvement plan. So can I get a motion, another motion? Second. All right. Questions? We can open up questions. So, oh, wait, questions? Sure. Yeah, you take questions before you, yep. That's okay. No, go. That's why we're here. So there are no specific priorities in the Act 209. There's just a schedule laid out. So we're actually having a separate conversation with the township to kind of identify those, priority projects. We're taking a look at safety as well as, some, obvious need as well.
To elaborate on that, one of the kind of larger central functions of why we wanted to pursue this was establishing a transportation plan, because that never existed in township history. So with that, we built out a 5-year capital plan. This might enable us to build a 10-year capital plan, 15, 20, if you wanted to get to that depth of it. And that's one where feasibility of funding, knowing the momentum of certain developments, kind of knocking out some of the solutions, that all gets built into like a prioritization schedule. But yes, you're right. I think that intersection you mentioned is one of the current existing 4 grade F intersections in Route 41. So it's 100% a priority for the township to fix it.
And I just mentioned kind of the implementation process. There's 2 ways. The township can, collect impact fees and then move those projects forward with the fees. The other is if development comes in, if their kind of frontage is near a, an intersection or on the corner or something along those lines, they can do the improvement and the township would credit their impact fee responsibility. Yeah, and then just in terms of the townships, the first process where the township kind of moves the project along, what's happening with a lot of townships lately is that they're using collected impact fees. So they're not really getting to the level that they need to fully fund a project. So they're using that as matches to go after PennDOT grants and other grants. So it's smart. That's kind of, you're working the system. So, but it's nice to have this mechanism to collect that money. Yeah, for sure.
A bit of everything, to be honest. It allows us to immediately begin engagement with PennDOT to kind of circle priorities that aren't necessarily 100% a developer kind of responsibility or township. It kind of segments out that and chase grants to kind of like the Route 7 interchange kind of area. Like that's like an immediate priority kind of area. But then it also allows us to address maybe some smaller level treatments just with the revenues we get as kind of a township kind of tactical attack towards some of the lower projects. And then other properties like the presentation we're going to talk about tonight, obviously a huge kind of developer-led initiative, and they're taking out kind of part of the plan. So it's mostly just giving you optionality and building like a multi-phased approach to it. I know that's probably, but it's going to be built over time and we'll iterate over time because it'll have to adjust based off of just things happening. So I think there was one more question.
And it's any new development. Yes.
I think it would be qualified by an actual submission of land development application. So not like seeking like a permit for like an extension on your house. We're not going to have an impact fee for that.
Yeah. If you built like an apartment or, you maybe had like, yes. Yep. It could have an impact. So sometimes the businesses, sometimes they're very specialized. So depending on kind of your traffic operations, what your business was, we'd look at that. If it's, obvious that there's going to be more traffic generated during the PM peak hour, then you would be subject to an impact fee. You know, if it looks like your your operations, or you finish at, 4 o'clock, then you don't get assessed the impact fee. So it's kind of iterative, but it's only on the incremental addition. Like, the impact fee isn't assessed to your whole business. It's just the additional, if it's applicable.
So just to kind of capture that, because we did get a comment about not having comments in the recording here. You're talking about the ability to iterate kind of on the fly as things happen to update what is being kind of essentially. Exactly. So any amendment to the Act 209. So that would be.
Yes. So again, the township can revisit this, annually if they want, or, maybe every 2 years. That's usually 2 to 5 years is kind of when townships, start looking at it again. But as they identify a project and start, moving it forward, there's going to have to be a new study. There's going to be new design. It's going to go through the PennDOT process. So that'll all be kind of re-evaluated to figure out, okay, this is a high-level planning study. So, we don't have all the answers set in stone. Nothing's fully engineered. But when you start moving those projects forward, you kind of identify, certain things that we can't pick up at this stage. So, if a different type of improvement is, determined to be ideal, maybe the traffic volumes aren't kind of increasing as, we had anticipated based on the LUAR, then, there's opportunity to kind of shift those traffic improvements. I would maybe reach out to the township and, I don't know if you have a plan in yet? Not yet. Yeah. If you have something that you can send into the township, or just say, hey, we have this business, and we're expanding, or if it's a new business, what it is, how big it is, and we can run a quick calculation for you, so you know. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if it, yeah, that probably isn't going to get updated for a while. Township to update the LUAR, the land use assumptions report, and redo the whole study. That's an intense process, expensive process. So the township typically does that probably every 10 years. In the meantime, we do go through and revisit, and we can do minor updates to the capital improvement plan.
And just to understand, like, that actually would increase the fee in theory if you were to add it. So it's a conservative estimate based off of the fact that we started this procedural review 18 months ago, when none of this on the table tonight was even speculated to happen. So it's one where it'll be iterative over time. Where at a certain point, we even looked at what our ordinance is in terms of pecking order of all townships in Chester County that have one. We're kind of near the top already, just because it's the most updated, modernized Act 209 plan. So it's just essentially the township accepting that outcome of, this is a justifiable fee that we can then plan for. But yes, it will change and iterate over time. I want to be cognizant of time to kind of separate the two meetings here tonight. So if just, if everyone's good.
All right. So there was a motion on the floor, so a vote by the committee? Unanimous?
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I think
Okay.
we can close the meeting then.
All right. For anybody watching online, we're actually going to stop this live stream and pick up for the board meeting on a separate live stream for the actual board meeting at 7 o'clock. So just stand by and you'll see a new live kind of function pop up here probably in about another 20 minutes. All right, and that concludes the public hearing for Act 209.